All right. What's up, brother? How we doing? How we doing?
Excellent, excellent, brother. Good to see you.
So I want to introduce Matt. Matt is a good friend. We met from me listening to a podcast.
Yes, yes.
And I remember hearing that podcast and what he was talking about and knowing and needing that I needed to talk to this guy because I wanted to figure out everything that had to do with astrology as I was looking into it and how beneficial it can be for your life. And I remember taking some time. I couldn't find him. I couldn't find him, but I wasn't giving up. And then eventually I found him. And I've gotten many readings from Matt. Very amazing, very beautiful human being. Friends to this day. And yeah, so I want to see, tell me about yourself, how you got to where you're at now and why astrology? Why did you pick astrology? What was it that brought you to it? And what was it that led you to the stars and to communicate through the stars to other people to help them find themselves?
Yes, yes. First off, thank you, and thanks for having me on as well. And yes, we met through DG's podcast, and uh, I appreciate you for your support, for your love, and then for your friendship as well. Because I'm really about meeting people who are genuine with everything, especially when it comes to information, knowledge, and wisdom, and bettering ourselves. And um, so, thank you. And also, what got me, I was like, I guess you could say a really mysterious child. So I was always alone and getting into things that I probably shouldn't have got into. And it's almost like I saw things beyond the physical. Um, so not, spiritual a little bit later or ghosts and all that kind of stuff a little bit later. But what I mean was like trying to figure out everything. I was questioning everything, wanting to know everything. And I always had a fascination with the stars. It was like they used to talk to me or communicate. Um, and I had a rough upbringing,
Mhm.
and it did lead to that sort of seeking out some sort of relationship or interaction with something other than what's in my environment already. And it became the stars, and it became information, and just like I said, wanting to know what's beyond the physical, what's going on. Why does things work this way? Why is it functioning this way? And uh, for some reason, it all went back to the cosmos, to the stars, to the stars. So I started getting telescopes when I was younger, really into astronomy, really into magic too. I used to get magic books and the card tricks and stuff, and doing the finger trick. And I didn't know then that like magic and the stars were going to kind of go together, right? But yeah, I was a heavy nerd. I read almanacs. Like I said, I was just a loner. I stay in the room all day and just doing my own thing. But life kind of went a different way. And then eventually what happened was I started getting heavy into symbols. And then symbols brought me back to the stars in a way I didn't know them. And then I started connecting the stars to um, that function or that order, so to say, that I saw beyond all the physical reality. So it was like it brought everything into spectrum for me. And then astrology kind of hit me. I found Santos Bonacci, and that he was the one that sort of switched it for me. And I always say that his wisdom and his teaching gave me a key. And then once I had the key, it was like, wow, this is fascinating and beautiful.
Mhm.
Um, and then I started doing readings. And then I started to really see the connection, because then you can see how interacts with people individually, um, and then also how it plays on a bigger scale too, which is always beautiful to see.
So, how many readings have you done at like you would say collectively?
Well over 1,000 for sure. I
Damn.
used to have this little book. It's actually right here, and I stopped keeping track. And I stopped keeping track of like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I think, and I stopped at 693. And this was, like I said, a year and a half, 2 years ago almost. And this is when I really started scheduling online and online. I started getting away from the book. So I'm well over into 1,000, and I've done probably 4 podcasts, I think, and also teaching, as you know.
Hmm. So af over the years, how has your readings developed from there to then to now? Sorry.
Oh. Um, Gosh. Uh, from a technical standpoint, I was doing all my readings handwritten. So I would literally have 7, 8, 9 pages for one reading, and I was doing them for $10 a pop, and they were lasting like 4 hours, 3 hours on the phone, to like 2, 3 hours to write it. But uh, but from
Uh,
that point, it was just with that, it was the basics. It was like, oh, your Mercury's in Sag. Oh, da 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 da, right? And then it developed into something that I feel became more intuitive. Once I understood the information, and once I had that key kind of, and then you start doing more readings and you hear different perspectives and different interpretations, it begins to evolve into something that you intuitively feel that just flows right out of you. The information is just there. It's kind of like playing like table tennis or something, or like ping pong, and you know exactly where the ball's going. You can just hit it. It's like that natural flow, muscle memory, or whatever the case. Um, and then I didn't know what I was focusing on in the beginning. I was just literally wanting to help, and then also wanting to help myself, because I wanted to understand it more and more. And the books are only going to offer me um, a certain amount of information. They're
mhm.
not gonna they're not gonna provide me with individual insight, and they're gonna give me insight as far as the astrologer is concerned, but um not as far as all these different individual interpretations. The third house ruler in the seventh house means this and this, but to this individual it means this. To this individual it means this, but they all kind of have the same theme, so to say. So now I'm more getting into the soul's evolutionary path, how to help the individual connect the subconscious to the conscious, becoming more aware of their patterns, understanding the cycles,
Mm,
um, and still getting into the this planet in this sign, this house means this, and this is what it means for you, and so they've evolved big time, especially doing different readings now, like transits and progressed and perfection years and solar return charts and composite charts. And um, so, yeah, it definitely evolved uh, all the way around. Now I have the program and the computer and everything's, written and typed already. And uh, it's not taking me 7 hours to put together a reading.
mm,
Prices went up, value went up,
yeah.
self appreciation and knowing what I'm bringing to the table, and that's big with me. Um, and in the beginning, it was like I said, it was building the value then, and trying to get to the point where I'm at now. And then
Mhm.
now I'm at that point, and I understand that I'm at that point, so I can just uh, blossom, so to say, and then also continue to be humble and keep learning and keep trying to understand.
How many years of that, like, how many years did it take you to fully just be into that intuitive space where you know when you see this, this, and that, and then where you even start? Do you start at a certain place, or do you just focus in and the gift comes out?
Yes. So um, it took me it took me probably roughly 2.5 years,
Mm,
2.5, 3 years to really get that. Um, and it, I feel like it had to come through the readings, and
yeah.
then through the readings there was feedback, right? There was people who were like, "Oh my God, this and this," and then that increases self-confidence, and you're like, oh, and and with my placements, I have my moon and my Mars and my South Node and my Sun all in my 10th house, and the 10th house is recognition and status. I want to be appreciated. I want to be recognized for what I'm doing, and in given that sort of positive feedback that makes me feel good about what I'm doing and I'm making a difference. And then I feel like throughout my time doing this, I've had so many just beautiful experiences and people who are grateful and it became for me humbling. I took it as a humbling experience, which then I feel um allowed me to grow more intuitively. And because I like I said, that self-acceptance and trusting in myself. But that took a while. It took 2 to 3 years. Essentially, with astrology, it took 2 to 3 years. But really, fully trusting myself and accepting who I am and what I've been through, that was a painful process that took me since I was probably 12. Um, more so, yeah. But then the readings in the beginning, I would go, your moon is here, your rising's this, your sun is here. They're aspecting this, so this is going on. They're in this house or whatever. Um, and I would try to, I guess, find my flow, right? Doing music, it was the same thing, finding your cadence, finding your rhythm, finding your flow. And even in the kitchen when I was being a chef, the same thing, finding your rhythm, finding your flow. And when you find that rhythm and you find that flow, then it all kicks in. And right now, what I do is intuitively done. Um, I go around, I look at the chart, and I pop out things, and I mess around a little bit because I want people to get comfortable. So I go, "Ooh, look at that! Ah, what's that?" And then I start playing around. I want to feel their vibe too. I'm big on energy with the individual. I want to make them feel comfortable and make them feel, hey, there's no judgment here. We're going to talk about me a little bit, because so that way I can relate it to you and get you to understand, like, hey, like release it, let it out. This is the time where you gotta, this is that subconscious to conscious connection, right? We gotta talk about this, and most of the time that's what people want anyway. They want that kind of connection, but. So I intuitively feel around and I pick out things and I feel the energy. And I have a recommended starting point for people, and it's the nodes, it's the lunar nodes. Where is Pluto in your chart? What house is Pluto in? Um, what aspects to Pluto? What aspects to the moon's nodes? And you start getting into your rising and your sun and your moon. And those all have relationships with other planets and they all interact with other planets. So, you can start getting further. Some astrologers go, your first house is this, your second house is this, your third house, and they go the flow of the chart. So there's no really wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
and nah, yeah, there's no, yeah.
okay, and so there's a thing that I know when I started to get into astrology, it was always what's your main three? Your sun
hmm
sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign. Why are those three so important, and what does every single one of those mean?
Okay. The so when people start getting into it's the sun sign, right? And then they're like, oh yeah, I'm an Aries and I'm this, and it's like, yeah, all right. Um, because that's the ones in the papers and all that kind of stuff that the horoscopes and based off your sun sign. Then people start getting further into it and they're like, oh, my big three, my sun, moon and rising. Um, and there can be a confusion with those three just because the moon and the rising kind of go together a little bit, but then also the sun and the rising kind of go together a little bit. And there's a saying, and I think I might have said this to you before, possibly, and I might butcher it a little bit, so I'm paraphrasing. But ultimately, um, a journey that takes 1,000 miles begins with one step, right? So the sun is ultimately what you're trying to get to. It's the individual. It's the character, the main character. That's the 1,000 miles. What are you getting to? Who are you? And that's the sun. The first step is the rising sign. That's the first step. That's the automatic impulse of who you are, which is what you show to everybody else.
Mm,
Right. So the first house of the ascendant is across from the seventh house. The seventh house is like looking in at that house. And then that house is our focus point. Where is our focus at? And the moon is tying into bringing everything to the center, right? And feeling it, and then determining whether or not it's good or bad. So this is where the moon gets into personifying who you are, building the personality. And the personality then is sort of going to automatically, impulsively operate through the ascendant or through the first house. And then it's ultimately building to that sun sign. And the sun sign is also your self-expression too.
Mm.
It's your unique self-expression. Same thing with Leo. You know, this is why a lot of times Leos feel special. But to a certain extent, they are. They're the sun when it's in its glory, right? And there's a certain power that that holds, though. Um, Heavy is the head that wears the crown, right?
Mm.
Um, So yeah, so they're different. The sun sign is ultimately the main character. It's who you are. It's the core of who you are. The moon is representing the personification of who you are. The swirling of opposites ultimately to determine who you are at your core, your morals rather, right? Building the personality, and then the ascendant is the focal point of how you impulsively move, how you impulsively operate. Um, Giving you experiences where you can build who you are, build your identity. Um, and then it's the personality as far as what everyone else is looking at, what everyone else is seeing. But ultimately, they're all going together. They're all flowing together, and uh, they all have a different function. But ultimately, they're building or going to the same goal. Just like all of our cells in our body, they all are different and operating differently, but they all have the same function.
Yeah. Okay. So how would you say astrology helps you understand yourself more and helps you personal development with yourself and
Hmm.
self-awareness and to meet you to understand who you are? How does that help?
Okay, so this is where we start getting into looking at astrology and looking at the planets and the signs and everything in an energetic way, right? Understanding that the planets are they're principles. They're principles operating within you. So, like we were saying about the moon is that collector. It's absorbing the environment around you and it's personifying, your experience. Um, and it's bringing you to the past. It's making you remember, right? Uh, and it's also dealing with the mother. It's also dealing with the mother instinct, the caring instinct, the nurturing instinct. Um, Mercury is dealing with how you connect to things, how do you communicate, the way you learn, the way you understand things, the way you name things and define things, how you process information. Mars is your action as far as like fight or flight, like your motivated action, the urge to take action. Um, Jupiter is dealing with expansion of awareness, um, understanding something after you reach the limitation, having a spiritual breakthrough, a spiritual awakening, so to say. Saturn is where you're actually defining yourself. You're shaping and you're forming through these boundaries you've placed, these limitations the ego's placed to sort of confine that spirit and that soul in there, right? So when you start to look at the planets and not say, well, Saturn's in here and this, which ultimately we're going to do anyway, but start to change the names around. And so instead of putting Saturn in the second house, right? Say I'm putting the way that I create boundaries and the way that I define myself and the way that I also have these fears and these self-limitations in this area of my life as well. And then the second house is dealing with resources, is dealing with self-worth and self-value and valuing things and how you feel about money and how you handle money. Um, so then you can start to piece it together what that's implying. Maybe you can be self-limiting when it comes to spending money. Maybe it was difficulty having money when you were first growing up. Maybe there was some sort of limitation with money when you were growing up, limitation with resources. Um, uh, needing to really define yourself through the worth that you give to other people, right? Um, but so this helps you in a way where it helps you better understand why you do the things that you do. Why are we here? What are we doing here? What are we, why did we come into this family for? I don't understand why I had to be born into these people. Um, and once again, it's that subconscious to conscious connection. It's becoming aware of who you are and who you were and who you'll always be. And then this is kind of where we get into the soul, right? Where we talk about what the soul being that uh how can we say that forever memory of who we actually are at the core. So when we incarnate, which is also dealing with Cancer and the moon too. The moon is the gateway here. Um but when we incarnate, we're coming into a whole new lens. It's a whole new world. The ego is just a lens anyway, and it's the personality, and it's building the personality, which ultimately is then feeding the soul, and then the soul is evolving or devolving, and then the soul is essentially growing and like I said, evolving or devolving, and then going and being placed into another physical vessel, another incarnation with another ego, another personality, something else to feed it and get it to evolve again. And then ultimately it's a drop going back into the ocean, right? It's all a part of one thing. But where has that soul been? What kind of experiences has it been accumulating? What sort of behaviors? What sort of families was it interacting with? What kind of relationships was that soul having? Because ultimately it is you, but it isn't you. And right now it's a part of you, and you're here in this vessel with this ego and this personality and this identity to figure out a way for you to heal or purify what that soul was bringing you. And then astrology helps in that way because it shows you the areas of your life that are, incredibly important.
So basically, you're saying like it's like a roadmap of your soul and its past incarnations and what's going on within this time and the life lessons you came to learn to an extent.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely. This is where you start getting into, karma and dharma. And karma is cause and effect. It's you reap what you sow. And it doesn't mean that, because karma is always, a lot, well, not always, but a lot of times looked at in a negative way. It's looked at as something that's negative or evil or I must have been this or done this. And it's like, no, you've done a lot of good and you've done a lot of bad, but good and bad are only taken into consideration whenever that soul was placed into a different vessel. The soul doesn't know good or bad. It has no idea what that even means. It's not until it's placed into somebody and then they can experience good or bad. So you can't sit up here and try to determine what your soul was doing in a whole another ego, a whole other personality. It's about what that soul was bringing to you and what you deem morally good or bad. And then ultimately that is then purifying. If you live it out and but cause and effect. What you do, you're gonna get back, and that's the 12th house too. That's why it's called the house of self undoing. It's the where you face all your fears, where you face your failures, and then that can be fearful, right? That can be the monster lurking behind the corner.
So in the spiritual community, I hear this a lot where people they focus so much on their past lives and what happened. Maybe they got a reading, maybe they got a past life regression, maybe they got an Akashic Records reading, maybe they got something like that, right? Where and it'll even show up in their natal chart. What would you say to somebody that's struggling with a past life when they're in this life and now just simply living right here due to their new astrological chart, new body, new ego?
Mhm. Yeah. So the sarcastic comedian inside of me wants to go, get over it. But no, but in reality it's not that easy. And because sometimes we do things and we're not necessarily aware of why we do them, and there are certain aspects of our past lives that came from our soul's previous incarnations that's attached to us that we have no idea why we even do, and that can then warrant, especially if you got multiple Virgo placements or sixth house placements, some sort of overthinking, overprocessing, overprocessing, and then this is getting deep into the opposite side of Virgo, which is the Pisces side, which is getting into the dream world and the spirit world and the mystical side. And then that's what paranoia comes in, or that's where overthinking gets mixed with this blurred line with spirituality. And what I mean is that there's nothing that you can physically do about any of your past lives, and any of your past incarnations, um, in this life, but work with the patterns and the cycles that you are experiencing every single day. Um, because the spiritual community kind of can water down a lot of different things. Um, but I'd say that
Very
with
true.
with with this is it's yeah, once again, you're in this body, you're in this life, and you in this body, and you didn't do anything. You
Yeah.
didn't do nothing. It wasn't you. Um,
Like
and yeah,
carrying something from, yes, maybe you killed some people. Maybe you were a genocide killer, but you're in
yeah,
this life now. You're not that genocide killer.
and
But
that's
those energies carried on to you and they're in your
yes.
here to work them out. But you have a new life, a new body, a new chance
Yes.
to
That's
like.
the idea of it. There's nothing that you can do about who the soul may have incarnated into, who you have soul connections with. That there's nothing that you can do about that. Um, well, who are you now? What type of person are you? Are you good to people? Are you respectful? Do you take care of what you got to take care of? Do you handle responsibility? Do you own up for what you've done? Do you how's your integrity? What's your character like? Are you compassionate? Are you sympathetic? Do you quickly judge people? Are you, there's so many different things you can get into, but this is what it is. What have you been handed and what are you doing with it? Uh, and like me, I play around with it sometimes when you go back and you think about what you might have been or what who you were, and um, there's so many possibilities and there's so many different avenues. Now, you can like I said with astrology, you can narrow it down to what experiences may you been having. Like yeah, but what kind of experiences may you had or may you have had? There we go. Um, what type of experiences ultimately led to the shadows that you have in this life? Um, how are you in relationships? How are you with career? How are you with handling money? How are you with communicating and speaking? How are you with delegation? How are you with handling business? Do you like to be in charge? Why not? Do you like having your power and using your power? Are you dominating? Are you manipulative? Do you lie? Why? These are energies that are coming from your past life. You could have been the best person to everybody in your past life, but ultimately there was something about yourself that you probably didn't like, and that's going to come over. Maybe you had the best life, but maybe like take for instance 150 years ago or something, you were born but your parents gave you up for adoption and you never knew your real parents 150 years ago, your soul, whatever, in previous incarnations. And let's just say that you were adopted to a family that was rich and they had money and they taught you morals and they taught you this and they gave you everything. You were respectful. You didn't, all kinds of stuff, right? All the goodies. But ultimately, you don't know who your parents were. That's going to haunt you. That's going to come into the next incarnation. Maybe you incarnate into a family where you're not emotionally attached to your family. Maybe there's a disconnect there. Maybe you and your mom don't get along. Maybe there's another adoption again that happens. Then you come back into this life or whatever the case, right? That wound is going to be there, and that's what it's speaking on, and that's what we should sort of inner listen to, I guess you can say, with the speaking to ourselves and understanding that inner child connection.
Yeah. Okay, and then how can astrology help you in this physical world, the main things that we're playing out in life, right? For when it comes to career, when it comes to health, when it comes to finances, when it comes to lifestyle. How can astrology help you identify and navigate this better?
Got you. So, in astrology, we have what we call transits,
Mm.
right? This is where you have your natal chart. This is your thumbprint, so to say. And this is where we were talking about the sun, moon, and rising, and then Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, all that. What's that?
What's the natal chart and what does that mean before you start going into that?
Yeah. So the natal chart is it's a thumbprint of who you are. It's essentially the way that the stars were aligned at your moment of birth.
Okay.
So you would need your birth date in the year, um, you know what time you were born. That's very important when it comes to what areas of life things are going to be happening, and then the location, and then that goes into your chart, and then you can find these on different websites. Um, once you get further into it, you're going to see that there's different housing systems and all that. But don't, look at what planet is in what sign, what's your moon sign, what's your sun sign, what's your rising sign, because they don't really change if you have your time. So the rest of it might change with different houses. But um, yeah, uh, once again, it's like your thumbprint, and we were talking about the soul, right? So it's like the soul's evolutionary story. It's the accumulation of the soul's experiences that ultimately led you to this lifetime, that is giving you this ego and this personality to go out and define this identity, which then ultimately is going to go back to that soul, which is going to go back into another incarnation. And in this life, the natal chart is that thumbprint that shows you that soul's evolutionary journey and tale. Um, and one way that it can help you in the real world, so to say, is with transits. Uh, take for instance, Libra risings.
Right now. So use an example of like what's happening right now in the stars versus a natal chart, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. So right now, um, well, first I'll use it in regard to a natal chart, so you can the relatability there. So for Libra risings right now, they have Saturn. Saturn is in Pisces, and this is tropical. There's two different zodiacs. There's a tropical zodiac and a sidereal zodiac, and there's a degree difference there, but that's a whole other thing. We'll talk about eventually, I'm sure. But um, Saturn is in Pisces right now. Pisces is Libra's sixth house, right? Sixth house is dealing with health and fitness and diet and routine and the service, right? So for Libra risings right now, this is a good time to change diet up, to start going to the gym,
mm,
to pay attention to nasty routines they're doing. What are the habits that you have right now that are just not working for you? Are they causing discomfort and displeasure? Are they messing with your health a little bit? Um, uh, so this is where, oh, Saturn's transiting my sixth house. Oh, I'm going to tidy up. And if you're not tidying up and you're not paying attention, then those energies naturally bring themselves in and they force a situation where you have to focus on that sort of thing in your life. Um, so this can help you with what's going on. Why why is this going on? What can I do with this energy? Where is this taking me? Where is this starting from? Because transits work in cycles.
mhm.
That Saturn might be over top of one of your planets in conjunction with it. And there was a cycle that started maybe um, you know 14 years ago, 7 years ago.
Mm,
And you don't want to bring into this cycle any of that old thing, or any of the old stuff that was coming from the last 7 years to 14. That's beneficial with you. What is this cycle trying to show you? What is Saturn emphasizing in your sixth house? Is it your health? Is it your diet? Is it exercising? Is it getting in shape? Is it sticking to routine? Is it how you're handling business? Are you paying bills? Are you, whatever the case? What is it focusing on? What is it showing you? Um, Astrology, as far as the stars right now, they show you, like I said, the principles at play. What is the energy looking like for the collective? What is going on collectively in the stars that could possibly make people a certain kind of way? And then this is why it's important to do it on an individual level because um you can read the energy in the stars and in the sky, and you come up with a whole bunch of different things. But if you don't know who you're doing it for or what you're doing it for, then it's difficult to interpret. I can sit up here like Nostradamus and learn the cycles of the stars, and I can say a whole bunch of stuff that could possibly come true because of those energies and those principles. But ultimately, I have nothing to relate it back to other than, you know,
to
just
what's going on. Yeah.
to what's going on in the sky. Like,
Really.
what's happening with the United States right now, what's happening overseas with different countries. Oh, we can start pulling their charts up and looking at what's happening with their chart and going, oh, this is why Ukraine's going through this. Oh, this is why Israel's going through this. This is why United States is having this during the election. This is why Joe Biden is going through this, right?
Mhm.
You can start making sense of that. Which then, if you want to, and if you're that big of a researcher and you have a whole bunch of Scorpio placements like I do, then you can start connecting that to other things. How is Joe Biden in the United States connected to Putin, Ukraine's chart? How is this like you start piecing it together, then you start to, oh, how has history repeated itself numerous times with these certain cycles are, when these certain cycles are taking place rather. So this can be extremely beneficial.
So, talking about cycles, everything as I have learned in this life has to do with cycles, not only from your birthday, but from the seasons, from the cycles that the planets make around the planet.
Mhm.
All of that plays in. So also diverting back to your chart, right? You said you talked about cycles. Those cycles mean exactly what
Mhm.
within
So, um,
why are they so important? The 16-year cycles, the 7-year cycles, the however, whatever the cycles are that's happening through your lifetime as you're developing.
absolutely. So, you know me, I love to do the seasons and I love to do like plant life and stuff. And it's the same thing with a plant cycle. In order for it to get to the fruit, there had to be a budding. There had to be a flower. There had to be a fertilization or some sort of reproduction. There had to be a formation of the fruit. There had to be a ripening of the fruit. There had to be a harvesting of the fruit. There had to be a eating and a sharing of the fruit, right? There had to be a decomposition of the fruit in order for the seed to soak up in the ground and then come back alive, essentially in Aries again. Um, Cycles are important because they're showing us periods of growth or lack of growth.
Mhm.
Where are we growing at and where do we need to grow at, right? So, like the 7 year cycle. This is a 7 year is Saturn. Saturn cycles operate in seven. There's three planets that are big on seven.
What are what
Four kind of.
What are some of the most important cycles that the planets come around that are pivotal to your life's development and growth?
Um, So for individual, so individually it would be Saturn cycles.
Mm.
Saturn is marking all periods of big transitional phases in your life. So when you go to excuse me, when you go to seven, when you're 7 years old, um you're being challenged because your individual ness is really coming in. Your childlike nature, your personality is really kicking in, you know. Um and this is where you start to really find your place in your family and where you fit in and where you don't fit in. When you get to 14, um, and these are very brief because I could talk about these for days. So if at 14, this is where you go to you're more outside the house. You have more friends. You're interacting with people more. You're more aware of other authority figures other than your parents. There's more at school. Maybe you're joining a basketball team or cheerleading. Maybe you're getting into secondary clubs at school and you have more authority, more authority, more authority, right? Because Saturn is authority and it's facing off with your Saturn. Saturn at 7 years old is authority is squaring your Saturn, which is I want to do this and do this and do this, but mommy and daddy ain't letting me. I want to figure out who I am, which is then going to conflict with what you've known for the last 7 years. When you get to Saturn, opposition Saturn, once again, authority, going out more, becoming more aware of who you've been over the last 14 years. 14, your psyche starts to kick in more. 7 years is also where your head is fully developed and stuff, and uh you're 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 past that sort of toddler kind of thing because even my daughter's 6, 7, and she's in at that mix. She's coming more into where she's aware of her feelings more and stuff. 21 is the other Saturn square. This is where you're getting ready to go to college. You're out in the job world more. 28 is the Saturn return, 28 to 30, set 29 roughly. Um, and this is the one that everyone's always worried about, when in reality it's just where you're forced to mature. Maybe you're getting a house. Maybe you're starting a career. Maybe you're starting a business. You're being pushed out. Like you're being introduced to your own karma. Um, I've always said that the first 14 years of your life you're living your mom's karma, and the last in the 14 to 28 you're living your father's. And then that's seen through the symbology of the home. When you look at the first 14 years of your life, you're in the home more. You're closer to the home. You're closer to the family. You're closer to the roots. From 14 to 28, you're out more. You're with your friends. You're going here. You're working now. You're this. You're starting your own life, and that's all masculine. Masculine is going out. Feminine is coming in. Um, so Saturn cycles are huge. And if you look at the sky too, like outside of the natal chart, Jupiter and Saturn cycles are big.
Mm,
They always mark big things. The last Jupiter Saturn cycle was right around COVID. The one before that was 9/11. The one before that was like home computers and when ATMs and credit cards was blowing up. The one before that was civil rights. The one before that was World War II. The one before that was right after World War One.
mm.
You know, so they mark cycles.
A new structure, a new way of living.
What's that?
New structure and a new way of living.
Yeah, because Jupiter is dealing with I always say it's controlled expansion.
Mhm.
There's always like 9/11, I mean we all know what happened with that, but that introduced the Patriot Act. That introduced all these cameras and everything being recorded and all that, right? That's controlled expansion. Oh, people are waking up, they're becoming more aware of things, they're getting smarter, they're thinking, they're asking questions. Oh, let's control them. Let's put some cameras in here. Let's this, let's that. And then 2020, which was COVID. This is where we all got to shut the fuck up now. Like, I'm sorry. Can I? Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. My apologies.
No, you're good.
But okay. But this is where we're told to shush. It's literally the mask over the face. And then since then, what's happened? People's gotten censored. People's got kicked off Twitter. People's got it's just controlled expansion. And then now, with this election for sure, there's this thing where this is big. You know if you start talking about what's happening in the country with like this election and all kinds of stuff, it's getting to the point where you can get hit with all kinds of different things and put in prison for terrorism and it's
Uh,
like, yeah, all I did was just speak my mind. This is the land of the free, right? It's the home of the brave. Um,
Supposedly.
yeah, yeah. So it's like, but that's all cycles. You can see that coming a thousand miles. Like there's astrologers and people that been doing this for a while that can kind of see that coming. And then
Dedic
this is, yeah.
dedicated to that specific thing.
Oh yeah, like I said, you got to put it to the United States chart. And you got to put it to Israel's, or you got to put it to especially those two. Those two countries in themselves are the axis. Um, that those two, this was all implemented into this fashion for this specific reason. And we're seeing it play out.
All right, so how can astrology help in relationships? I know a lot of people struggle with relationships. I know a
Mhm.
lot of people haven't met themselves or have healed enough in order to develop this. So how can something like astrology, your natal chart, your soul's path be super impactful to learn and know what it is that you can develop and work on?
Okay, so there's two main things that come up with astrology. And it's always relationships and career. What 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 am I supposed to be doing in my life? And then who am I supposed to be
And
with? And those are the two, yeah, the two biggest ones. Um, so what we have to do, like, forget astrology, right? If we were just to say, um, what are you supposed to do before you find your significant other, right? You're supposed to find yourself. There has to be this relationship with yourself. Life is literally about, relationships, and I've spoke about this before. Astrology, everything is connected through relationships. And the first relationship that we have um is with the mother and the family. But that first relationship, and this can be explained, astrologically with Mars and Neptune, but we further separate ourselves from source when we first come into this vessel. So we come into this vessel, we don't need source anymore. We need food. We need our diaper changed. We need my mom's, boob or whatever. We need something like that. And we begin to sort of disconnect and disconnect and disconnect. Um, and lost train of thought. Say it again.
relationships. How does it impact?
Yes, okay, sorry. My mind goes tangents. Um, Yes. So what happens is that we have that first relationship with our mother, but we're disconnecting from ourselves and from that source. So when you think about source, there's two sources ultimately. There's the source that we came from, and then there's that source or that divine spark or that we're a part of on the inside. And the more that we need on the outside, we lose on the inside, right? And then as we grow, we get more attached to physical things and our friends and our possessions and all kinds of stuff. And we lose that connection with this and here. Um, Everyone does, unless your parents were like big on spirituality and they were, whatever the case. But uh, the first thing is to find the way back home. Find the way back home. And this is why astrology is extremely important because it's literally a thumbprint of who you are. It's a thumbprint. It's like, Hansel and Gretel leaving breadcrumbs. It's telling you where to go and how to get there. And the first relationship that you have to have is with the self. And
Why?
so why?
Yeah.
Because you have to know who you are and how you're going to operate and how you're going to interact with whoever you're going to interact with on whatever kind of level, professional level, an intimate level, with your children. You can learn how you're going to interact with children. I know, like when you have Aries on the fifth house, Sag rising sometimes, they can be a little bit impatient with children. They can be a little people that have cancer on the fifth house. They can be a little helicopter mom or a helicopter dad or overprotective or always think the worst is going to happen. Or so you can learn a lot about how you're going to interact with children. Now, obviously, this is not giving you firsthand experience because this is what you ultimately need anyway. In order for you to grow, experience brings wisdom, you
Yeah.
know. But there still has to be this understanding of who you are. You'll learn more about who you are when you get into your relationships, but find that connection with self as much as you possibly can, so that way you know exactly who you are when you're interacting with people. So that way you can maintain your identity and you can define your boundaries and you can set them and not cross them. And then whenever they are being crossed, you can recognize it. Why? Because you know who you are, you know who they are, and you're humble enough and you're proud enough and you're open enough to be able to admit when you're wrong, when you're lying, when you're upset, why you responded the way you did, why when you were triggered you did this and said this and you didn't really mean it. Why did I have that trigger? Oh, because now I can self-reflect. Now I can go back on it and be like, oh, this happened because of this and this and this and this. But some people are not man enough or woman enough to do that. They don't. So this is where it comes in.
Yeah.
And this is why it's beneficial to know to know who you are and to know yourself, so that way you're not being triggered as much, or you're learning from the triggers because we're still going to be triggered every now and again. We're human. It's still going to happen. Um, so when you do relationship charts, you have to first of all do them individually. Who are you? Who is he or she? And then you go, okay, now let's put them together. Um, and then you see, for me, I love doing composite charts, and that's taking one chart, another chart, and putting them together into one and making them into one chart. They operate as a unit essentially. They have one ascendant, one sun, one moon, all that. And those are incredibly accurate. The, the readings I've done with those are beautiful, but they're showing you how you are operating in public together? How are you operating in relationships outside of your relationship together? How do you guys communicate as a team? When you have friends over, are you guys speaking sort of the same way? Are you communicating the same way? Is one, are you all there? Or is one of you lying? Is one of you not open? Um, you can get into business relationships and all that kind of stuff.
So you can identify red flags for sure.
Oh, absolutely. But you'll see the red flags before you even get into the composite.
Yeah.
That's what the individual chart. And then you also have synastry where you're comparing one chart to the other and you're going, oh, your moon is trining my Mars. Oh, your sun is sextile my Uranus. Okay, that's when you start, because there's a synastry which is taking two charts and looking how they connect with each other and their relationship with each other. Then there's the composite where you take two charts, three, four, whatever, and you put them on top of each other into one.
And this could be done not only romantically, but in business, in friendships, in all of it, right?
I've done business. I've done husband and wife. I've done father and son.
Mm.
I've done mother and daughter.
Mhm.
Um, as far as the different ones, yeah, father, son, husband, wife, mother, daughter, and then I've done plenty with people who are doing composite readings or synastry readings without the other individual even knowing or getting into it, right? Potentials, right? Potentials. Um,
Let me text. What's your birthday and when were you born? What time were you?
yeah. I've done plenty of those,
What?
which you can never really tell. Ultimately, there's no experience there,
Yeah.
so there's possibilities. So you have these certain characteristics, but you don't know how they're going to unfold. You don't know how that you haven't experienced them yet. And then when you experience them, then you start to understand how you can operate through them, why they happened. But on the individual level, that's all there as well. So.
All right. So I want to touch bases on how and why do you think religion deemed astrology the devil or bad, or we
Okay,
should
so
away from it?
well, this is where you started getting into the separation of the utilization of astrology. So astrology was always an elite thing. It was always for the kings and for the emperor um and the Greeks made it more common with doing individuals' birth charts and all of that. Um the reason why is because religion is astrology. Um, and religion is forcing you outside of yourself. Astrology is forcing you inside of yourself. So the people outside of yourself want to utilize this information and this wisdom as a way or a means to keep you from knowing yourself.
Mm.
Um, and what
Why do you think that?
it's the power when people understand what's going on and then people know who they are at a deep level, where's
Yeah.
the violence at?
Yep.
Where's the war? Where's the poverty? Um, there
Where's
there's what's that?
so where's the entrapment? Because you can't control a mind that's free.
Exactly. Where is the need for government?
Yeah.
Where is the this is where you get into the utopian and the utopian society and getting into this fairy tale-ish land, but in reality it'll never happen until or it won't happen until um each individual consciousness becomes enlightened and awakened. And but there's always going to be a balance. There always needs to be a balance. And that's the thing. And even though the world might seem a little dreary and a lot of pain and stuff, but there's still a balance happening. It's just hard to see that when we're going through so much. And the balance also becomes um, lessened or heightened depending on where we're at in existence. Uh, like I look at it now, like I always use this example where in like the 1400s or 1300s, they would sentence people to death for like stealing turnips.
Mm. Yeah.
And you think about that now, and it's like, whoa, like, whoa. Um, but then now. we have the system in place, and then the system has a balance. Um, and then the lack of balance or the balance on the other end is the spiritual side, or the side that is not necessarily trying to conform to that. Um, but yeah, we're
So
doing good though.
you said something, astrology is religion. What did you mean by that?
Everything comes from astrology. Everything comes from the stars. There's not anything in this existence that doesn't come from the stars. Even the scientists say it, and the astrophysicists, we're made of star dust. Everything comes from the stars. There's not nothing that doesn't. The language, we speak light language. The language, the creation of the letters were inspired by the shapes of the constellations and the stars. Um, the letter A, where that's where you get the alpha. That's where you get the bull, Taurus. Aleph in Hebrew. Um, you just gotta break down the break it down, and you got this is where etymology is extremely important, and in learning what the words mean in different languages, um because this is where once again I was speaking on having the key. This is the key is the etymology of the words. The key is the astrology. In the beginning was the word. Well, he must have spoke, or she must have spoke, or it must have spoke, you know um people are so connected to God and don't even really realize it, especially uh,
Yes.
uh, etymologically. I think I might have did this with you before, but it's the it one, the it or the et. Isis. Isis is Mother Earth, and it's connected to nurturing and stuff. Well, Isis is also is all set. The Greeks called all set Isis, um, but her name is all set, and set is dealing with the feminine. Et, all set. Um, and set is also where you get the sunset and all that kind of stuff. But then you get into the et, which is the it. And like I said, Isis or all set is Mother Nature. So then when you go into when you say, how do you say something about what the temperature is outside? It's hot, it's cold, it's snowing, it's raining. Well, what is it? What what is it? It is God. God is snowing. The cycles of nature, and inside her womb is is cycling, and the weather is creating this and this. This is why it's doing this. Well, what is it inside of there? And now you're getting into the masculine also. Um, that's the child inside of the stomach. Wind is blowing. That's masculine. The sun is shining. That's masculine. Um, you start to get into this. It tells the whole story here.
Mhm.
It's beautiful.
All right. So I remember seeing something about astrology is the story of basically every deity that there has ever been. So can you talk about that? Do you know what I'm referring to when I say that? The story,
Um,
the son, the prodigal son.
Yeah, so this is, get to the hero's journey and the 12 labors of Horus or Hercules or
And
Heracles or
how does that play in every single story ever told?
Mhm. Well, let's go back to um the apple tree. Um it's the same story. You cannot change or alter the formation of a fruit. Can't do it. You can't change it. It's always going to have this stage, this stage, this stage, this stage, this stage, this stage, and it's going to go all around. It's going to go into a cycle, and it's going to happen again. And every religion that you have is all going to have the same story with different characters, different settings, different backdrops. But ultimately, this is why etymology is important because you can trace the words back, um, and it's all going to the original source or one source. Um, excuse me, but yes. So once again, this is where you understand the principles and understand that the energies that these planets represent, and then you understand why you had Thoth and why you had Hermes, why you had Apollo, why you had Helios, um, why you had Mithra, why you had Dionysus, why you You had all these different gods and goddesses, Persephone and Aphrodite, and because they're all representing a certain part of the story. If we go back to the like I said, the apple tree or the apple growing, all you would need to do is give an archetype or some sort of definition as far as a character goes to each stage. If I wanted to say, um, the beginning of the plant. The beginning of the plant is coming out and it don't care. It's just growing and it's just growing and it pushes everything out of the way. That's fucking Mars. That's Mars. Mars is just opening things up. Well, that's war. That's I always win. Nothing can stop me. Why? Because in the beginning of a plant, nothing can stop it, unless you're putting a brick wall on top of it, or if you have a plant in the middle of the ground, in the middle of the field, it's gonna grow good. It's just gonna but also depending on what trees are around it and stuff, but like that. But it just grows. It grows. The leaves on the tree just don't stop. They keep growing. Um, so you can assign certain labels and names to different phases of our life. Like sometimes toddlers, are rambunctious and all that, but you're going from a certain stage. You're going from infant to toddler, and then to, a child, and then young adult, and then, well, teenager, young adult. Um, so all like the Egyptians did it the best, I feel, because what they did was is they had a god for wind, they had a god for the air, they had a god for the sky, they had a god, but in reality, it was all part of one god.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so the same thing with astrology.
And then those gods represented a planet.
Hmm.
Yes. And
In different ways. Because each planet is not just one characteristic. Each planet has a whole. This is why Mars is Shiva, but also Saturn is Shiva. Um, then you start getting into like Paul and Barnabas.
hmm
That's Mercury and Jupiter.
yeah.
Um, Anytime you deal with people speaking the word or being the prophet or whatever the case, that's always Mercury.
Yeah.
Um, anyone who is compassionate and loving and self-sacrificial, well, that's Neptune and Jupiter. Um, there can only be one God, and I am that God. And there's only one God. There's no other gods but me. And if you want to go and worship those gods, then I'll smite thee and shit. That's Saturn. There's no other God but me. I'm the only one. That's what Saturn does to the ego. Saturn defines that ego. It shapes that ego. I'm the only one. There's nothing else with me. This is why you're scared to do this. This is why I hold you back from this. This is why I limit you from this. And then like I said, then you can read the Bible, and then all you do is just take the keywords they're saying and then put the planet there.
Yeah.
Uh, and then you can make more sense out of it. And then later on, when you start comparing and contrasting it to other things, then you can really start piecing it together because you're just breaking it down layer by layer by layer by layer. And there's so many different, um, I guess we can say, what would that word be? Not hypocritical, but uh, contradicting. Some sources, you read the Bible, you read this, you read this, some contradict each other. But then once again, this is where it all goes back to one thing, though. It's ultimately going back to one source.
For sure. Okay. To wrap this up, how and where can people reach you, and what services do you offer in order to help people with everything that we have talked about? And where can people find you?
Yes, so I have a website, divinemind369.com. I offer readings, natal chart readings, transit chart readings, composite, progress readings. I also do natal numerology readings as well.
Mhm.
Um,
That's a good one,
and then
by the way.
what's
That
that?
I said that's a good one, by the way. I highly
Yes,
recommend that one,
thank you,
especially if
thank you.
you like numerology.
Yes, that one's beautiful, and it's just, like I said, they all interconnect, and it's good to see. I also have a community at divinemind369.com called the Wholeness Astrology Community. In the community, we do weekly meetups every Thursday, every Friday, where we teach astrology and go over what we're going over now, just way more in depth. And there's Cosmic Chronicles, which is a library. There's a group that I'm doing called Divine Wisdom with Karina the Healer, who's amazing. And then there is Cosmic Tea, which is talking about what's going on in the sky, which I'm working on a video right now with Jupiter returns and all the houses. Um, and there's Cosmic Kitchen, like I said, with the workshop and stuff. Um, and there's community, there's love. And there's Rob too. You guys get Rob too. But yes, divinemind369.com. Um, I have TikTok as well. Everything is essentially Divine Mind 369. I'm mainly on Instagram and TikTok. I'm on YouTube too. I'm posting more videos on YouTube as well. Um, but yeah.
All right. I got three questions to end this.
Hmm.
Just rapid fire questions. Just what comes up as you feel them. Sound good?
All right, let's go. Let's go.
All right. What is your meaning to life?
You said rapid fire questions. Okay, this is not rapid fire questions. This is like
What is your meaning to life, brother?
define my meaning.
What meaning have you given to life? What does life mean to you? If that helps more.
Love and appreciation.
I like that. Love and appreciation. Okay. What would you tell what would you tell your 10-year-old, not as in you're 10 years old, but 10 years back? What would you
Hmm.
tell that person who you are now? What would you tell that person?
You're going to leave and change everything.
Hmm, that's simple. Okay. I see that. All right. What's one message you want to leave humanity with?
Love, love and appreciation.
All right.
Love each other. Love yourself. Know when you're right, know when you're wrong, as it pertains to your morals and as a collective moral system. Um, and love and appreciation. That's all we really need. And um, I feel like people will be validated. They'll feel loved and appreciated. They'll feel a part of something, um, instead of feeling rejected and hit with this sort of fabricated plastic reality that we live in now, where it's pushing you away from everybody. So love and appreciation brings you closer.
Okay. And then last one. What would you say reality is?
What we make it. Um, it's what we think and what we say and what we feel, and c collectively what we ingest or yeah, what we take in.
All right, beautiful. All right, brother. Thank
Yes,
you so much for being here. Thank you so much for all the information you gave. I highly appreciate it. Please go check him out, divinemind369.com, on TikTok, on Instagram, Wholeness Community. Check that out. Definitely can learn so much from Matthew. I guarantee you. I'm there too.
beautiful.
Check it out, guys.
Yes, yes. Thank you.